Judita De Silva, Arise Play, Nigeria. In your process of imbibing information about the real life Tony, at what point did you feel that you knew him well enough that you could stop being investigative and start being interpretive because you could make instinctive choices as an actor and feel they would still lie within a credible realm of who the man actually was?
Yeah, it's a great question. Great question. And it was the first thing that was jarring to me was that, Gus approached me with this thing. I've been a huge fan of Gus, of course. So very flattered. And as I was reading the script was great, but I just wished that the script came out of a vacuum because as you're reading it, I was clicking these links that were in the script of like the actual footage and the actual phone call to the police station, the actual press conference. There was so much of the real Tony there, and I've played real people before, and I've always felt that I had like, okay, no, I can make a credible, like, it doesn't, you don't have to necessarily look exactly like the guy you're playing, but you're like, oh, there's enough similarities here where you can, where you can feel like you can portray them. And with Tony, the real Tony is a foot shorter than me, quite a bit older. I mean, it's just if you look at two pictures of us next to each other, it's almost comical. Like we have no similarities, and that was jarring to me, and I was listening a lot to his voice, and I was like, I thought, that there was something very sort of idiosyncratic about how he spoke and his accent, but also his delivery, and it said something about where he came from and his background. And so I did a lot of research, a lot of study, and sort of worked with my own voice and trying to figure it out. I was sending things to Gus, like, here's where I'm at. Is this too much? Does it feel like a caricature? And he, Gus wasn't concerned. He was kind of like, all right, whatever you're doing, man. Like he was like, he was not involved. He wasn't, he wasn't involved in what I was doing. He was just like, okay, explore whatever you're exploring. But and then he was also just kind of not concerned. And then just like, at one point, he was just like, all right, well, gently sort of like, just, do your version of it. Just don't be too bogged down on the actual guy. And then I slowly started, our version, my version of Tony, kind of slowly became in the forefront, and then he started sort of dictating the performance and everything else that followed. So it was a tricky thing. It was a tricky thing.
But looking at the story of Tony's actual story from the vantage point of where we are today, it feels like people always gravitate towards a Robin Hood-like figure. So from Tony in 1977 with a mortgage broker to Luigi Mangione in 2024 with a insurance executive, no matter how severe the crime, they can find empathy. Did that overarching elements to the story influence your processing of Tony as a character for a film?
Yeah, I mean, the Luigi Mangione thing happened like a month before we went into production to shoot. So I was already signed on to it, and I was like, whoa, like this thing there's a lot of parallels to this thing that happened as we were gearing up to it. So it definitely the movie felt very current, like coming off of something just like this. I think there's that thing, and just like the actual case of this, where it was broadcast on on the news, sort of a 24/7, a very early stages of this 24/7 coverage of a situation, live hostage situation, where people were just so captivated that they could tune in at 2 a.m. to see where they were and what was going on at the time, and you would, and some people, I think the more of a lower sort of social class that you were from, maybe you identified more with Tony. You were like, yeah, screw these mortgage brokers and the banks, and I also feel that the system has betrayed me, and like I can't pay my mortgage, and they bled me out, and and then they side with him, because they're on an emotional level, they are with him, you know.
Yeah.
And then the more well off you are, the more you go, no, this is clearly a criminal. And, you know, we have the, you know, if you don't pay your interest rates on time, yes, you lose the land and you lose your property. And this is all, you know, all well and good. And so, you know, and I think maybe when you watch people when they watch this movie, they could also, it sort of mirrors the reaction of what people had live when it happened. You know, some
Yeah.
people will go like, okay, like, you know, there's like some people will go, they will point to Al Pacino's character and like, oh, he's clearly the villain in this movie. And some people will go like, no, well, Tony is the bad guy. He's the villain in this movie, and it's sort of up for interpretation. And the fascination of it is where you're coming from and what you're fighting for and what you empathize with. But to me, it was a character like Tony was very understandable. Like I could for sure empathize where he came from, you know. And if you are cornered and you have had a whole life when you've never had enough and you've never had opportunities, but you've worked hard and you've never given up and you've had this dream of some time of a one point breaking through where you came from, and then the system is taking that away from you, you can understand that someone like that, you know, becomes dangerous and
Yeah.
becomes, you know, explosive. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for talking to us, and another brilliant performance. Really remarkable. Well done.
Thank you so much. Great questions. Thank you.